Welcome everybody to another episode of the Genesis Mindset. Today, we're going to have the Steadypup. So the pup with the steady nature, the founder of PLSPUP. So he'll be joining me today. He's already on stage here. So he'll be sharing updates on his ETF style token, which is done since our last conversation, or our first conversation rather. It's done over 50x since we last spoke. And it's obviously done its 50x plus. It's been printing reflections. So if you're a holder of PLSPUP, you will be licking your lips. So we're going to discuss also, we're going to start with discussing this latest Richard Heart FUD. I'd love to see his perspective on it, how it's impacted his token, and how he's playing this current dip as a manager of a token. And we're also going to discuss what he's been working on within Dysnomia and any alpha he can share on liquidity webs and liquidity providing, because Steadypup was one of the first ones to really share with me and help me understand what arbitrage was. So with that, Steadypup, how's it going, man? Oh, now your microphone got wrecked. I don't know if you're talking or not. I could hear you before, but now I cannot. Unless it's my sound. I'm pretty sure it's not my sound. All right, so something was happening. We just tested his microphone and it was fine. So a little bit of technical difficulty there. So he'll just obviously just try and reconnect, and hopefully that will get sorted out. So while he reconnects, so the white background, the thumbnails, it's eye-catching, right? So yeah, it was always supposed to be like on point with the branding. So let's try again. Steadypup.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. There we go. That was weird because you were.
Yeah, I don't know. I think my device just fell asleep or something. So hopefully that won't happen again. Sorry about that.
That's all good. No problem, man. How's everything going?
Yeah, things are good. It was an interesting day, as everybody probably noticed on the charts. But I always try to keep my head up, and we've been through similar dips in the past, so I always see dip opportunities as the best days to be building and to be reorganizing liquidity, or if you've been lacking in a certain token, if you've been wanting to accumulate, it's a really, really good day to hop on some tokens. For example, I accumulated some PHEX today, and I accumulated some more wrapped BTC, and just things like that, so I can actually have more strength and power in the next few weeks, where I do think we're going to be going a bit higher in 2025. So I'm just getting my basket of goodies that much fatter.
So when you say strengthen your position, you're talking about in your personal portfolio, or in the sense of PLSPUP?
Both, honestly. I have my own personal things, but I also view myself as like an active, manager of a token. I always have to be seeing what's the next big thing coming to the ecosystems, and how I can, get PLSPUP moving that much more. But where the most growth happens in a token is on red days, in my opinion. So let's say you want to outperform Pulse. Okay. So that's a big goal of mine, is to,
Oh, we've just lost you again. We've lost you again, Steadypup. Sorry, fam. We do have a bit of technical difficulties here. So yes, muffins. Let's get some likes and shares, and thank you for the comments. Get it out into the algo. One Love. Good evening, One Love. What's going on, man? Dang, hating on white. Yeah, I know. Why does everybody hate on the white? Let's try again.
Yeah, it seems like my device wants to fall asleep every like 5 minutes, so I might have to find something better if we're not going to want to be disconnected. We got a few.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe I'll switch computers and I'll use my laptop mic instead of an external device. Is that okay if I come back in like 1 minute,
sure.
and then you can keep everybody entertained, and I'll have a better mic for you guys.
Okay? I'll keep everybody entertained. All right, sounds good. Okay, so entertainment. What can we do? I'll go through these comments. So Hexwatt, it's good to see some of these familiar names across different streams. So I saw Hexwatt in the St. Wolf stream. I've seen you obviously here as well, Hexwatt. So good to see you, man. It's really good to really see the familiar faces. Billy Mack is another one that I see a lot. Billy Mack, yes, what a day. What a day. I don't know how you guys are feeling about it. It was definitely something that it was extremely unexpected. But at the same time, it just, I've become almost immune to it. It was just such, it's the same playbook. It's the same playbook that we've seen it again and again. They use it with Andrew Tate. They used it with, I mean, they're using it now with Richard Heart. They used it for our boy, or my boy, Julian Assange. It's just the same playbook. They're running out of, yeah, they're just running out of ammunition, aren't they? So it's crazy day. But you know, if you're an accumulator, like Steadypup said, the red days are the best days to actually start building. So VIP trader, this bull run, 0.01%, 0.01 hit confirm. Are you talking about Pulse Chain with the 0.1 cent hit? That's 1 cent. Are you talking about Pulse Chain on that? That would be like extremely. I hear barking. Oh, here we go. You're on your laptop now, man?
Yeah, this should be better now.
All right, sweet. Yeah, what were you saying, man? I kind of I lost my train of thought now as I run.
So I think for my whole journey of being, you know, a token holder or a token owner, is to outperform Pulse, the gas token, and you know I want to outperform other tokens too. But when I see really big, large red days, those are really sweet opportunities to outperform a token on a red day. To then, when the market recorrects upwards, our ratios are that much stronger for the push upwards. So, so if I can, you know, put some economic energy into PLSPUP, for example, on a red day like this, it means I've won against Pulse. And that's when I can move that much forward. Like I might not beat Pt I because there's a lot of economic energy. I haven't checked the chart or anything, but you know, I can try my best to keep up with that or outperform Pt I on certain dips. And then we can really get like leveraged up once the market recorrects upwards. So that's kind of how I see it. I don't mind red days. It's kind of when I got to put my, you know, my work boots on and start making some LP plays and start making some buybacks on my own token.
Nice. And so just from the perspective of setting aside having the liquidity on the side, are you using fresh capital, or are you kind of taking profits at certain stages when the market's really healthy and then you're keeping that for dips? How do you actually go about doing that?
Yeah, I think for my case, I think everybody's different, obviously. But for me, I'll pretty much always have stable coins on the side. So I was kind of expecting something like this to happen. I didn't know when, but I definitely have stables ready for this, right? And I usually on PulsePup, you know what? I don't pretend to be the best trader in the world. Like I can read all the charts and like I'm decent at it, and I'm like I've timed some pretty good tops and stuff like that, and I'll DCA out of maybe some larger LP pools that I had like Pt I and Pt Rep BTC because they were quite inflated, right? So I'll definitely DCA out on the way up, and I'll DCA out in on the when it goes down. So it's just really basic stuff, honestly. If people are scared, I'll be buying. If people are euphoric, I'll be selling. It's really that simple. Yeah.
So you're not really necessarily bringing in fresh capital. You're basically just skimming some.
Well, what's interesting with me is I'll do some like some trading on the PUP account. So people, like, it's a public account, like people can watch it, but I'll do some trading. And if I get a significant trade, that's just profit on the account, and I can just buy PulsePup with that. So I don't really tell anybody, but I'm also making profit on the account, and I can actually make buybacks from that just for, you know.
So when you say, okay, so what does that process look like for you? You're actually, so let's say you've got some PulsePup in holdings, obviously, and you're in the wallet, and then what you're selling when it gets to like a top.
No, I never sell PulsePup. I'll sell either PLS or USDC usually. and I'll buy back PLSPUP, but I'll never really actually sell PLSPUP for anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say sell USDC, you mean the PUSDC, the copy?
No, the actual Ethereum stablecoin. I'll like gather my resources, like a squirrel. You put your coins away. I make a successful trade on something. I'll sell it into USDC, and then
Gotcha.
if there's a dip, I can just buy it back PLSPUP with Ethereum USDC whenever I can, feel opportunistic.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool, man. So just before we get into that, I suppose we won't go into it too much because I think it's been already like really hammered. But what was your initial? It was interesting. Somebody was asking in the St. Wolf stream, like, how were people feeling about it? He was saying, with the SEC, if that was a 10 for him, like a kick in the nuts 10, he felt like this was a 3 or a 4. How did you feel about this particular news this morning, or in the evening it would have been for you?
Yeah, you know what? I think there's something to say about getting thicker skin as well, since we have been through kind of a demoralizing SEC case. So I'm in a lot of chats, so I've been reading a lot of sentiment, and there's some people that are kind of afraid whatsoever, but there's a lot of people that are kind of like either ready for this, or they have stables ready, or they kind of see this as the next shakeout. How I see it is mainly, we're kind of used to red and FUD on Pulse Chain. So for me, it's kind of another day in the office. It's like definitely a harder day in the office. You see your portfolio shrinking by like massive numbers. It's not fun. But if you start understanding of, the auto compounding of the volume, Sunny will tell you it's like on the red days, you're making more. So it really depends on how you've set your positions. If you've over leveraged yourself, if you were ready for a dip, all those things will really set you up for your emotional response in a situation like this. So I have, some rules that I stand by in crypto for me to not overreact emotionally. So I stand by some rules, like example, having stables, not being over leveraged, not having too much invested that I'm gonna, want to jump out the window. Just there's a lot of things like that comes with experience and time, where these things happen, and it's like, okay, this sucks, but we're ready to let's make really concise moves for the next leg. This is like a buying opportunity, and opportunistic people like me will capitalize on this. Because
I love that.
Just imagine, so my body and emotions will still respond in maybe in a negative way, but then it's the awareness of what's happening and making the opposite decision from there. That's really what's made me successful in this past bear cycle, is understanding what emotion's coming up and usually doing the opposite of it.
Bro, I've never heard you talk like this, and this is something that I constantly talk about on my channel as well, really using yourself as an indicator, because we're all just humans, right? So we're all feeling the same thing, but if you can separate yourself from that feeling, have that emotional intelligence, and literally do the opposite of it. If you're feeling really greedy and euphoric, that's when it's like, okay, I'm gonna have to start taking some profits now. If you're feeling really afraid and that FOMO's kicking in, it's like, okay, now it's probably the time to, or not FOMO rather, but if you're feeling that fear, now is actually probably the time to really start to buy, because it's just the same story again and again and again. And the Michael cycles have these sort of interwaves, but it happens in this sort of larger scale wave. So that's really cool that you're able to do that. And I like the fact that you have those rules as well, which help you. I think the rules are really important, because otherwise you do get lost in the emotion, because the emotion sort of blocks your ability to really think with clarity. So if you're feeling like really afraid or really greedy, you don't know what to do. But if you've got some rules and you just follow it like a robot, it seems to be the way that all the smart big investors play the game.
Yeah, and I think everybody should have their own personal little rule book. They can keep it in the desk next to you in the little drawer or whatever. And if you got a panic day, just whip it out and read it back to yourself, or even writings that you've written to yourself on how you react to markets. Just to read back to your concise self, I think is really important. And I think it's cool to talk about this on your channel because you're more focused on this kind of, energy around emotional control and stuff like that. So I think it's a cool concept to actually have notes and having written down how you react to markets, either up or down. It's really important to, maybe you didn't sell the last euphoric up. Maybe you write in your book next time is like, when I feel this euphoria, I'm going to take 10 to 20% off the top. I'm going to sell for profit because last time I did not do that and it didn't feel good. So this time I would like to take a nice 10, 20% and I'll feel better. So yeah, just like a little reminders like that for yourself is really important, I think.
I love it. I love it. And it's really cool to see how even the sort of totality of the consciousness of Pulse Chain is because we've experienced these things so much. I mean, T-Bird for me is like, he's very high consciousness. He's on another level as well. But, he's really looking at these situations. Like we're all starting to like just become sort of immune to these kinds of situations now where, for goodness sakes, physically assaulted a 16-year-old victim by grabbing their hair, dragging them into the stairwell, like all this. Yeah, you don't know, but I don't see that in his nature, even in the slightest. So it's all just, it all just seems so crazy. And Pulse Chain and the Hex community, there's like a sector of it which seems to be like more in tune with the way things are. So it's really cool also that you're doing it, and it's reflective obviously in your chart because PLSPUP is doing absolutely amazing since we last spoke. So
yeah, and as far as like making specific comments on this new development, I don't really have much, alpha on Richard Heart right now. He's been hiding for a long time. I'm assuming he's protected from how he's speaking during his tweets. I think that was a really positive tweet of what you said. So that definitely calmed me down a little bit. It happened very close to when everybody started looking at this new FUD basically. So he seems like he was quite ready. He had the button ready to reassure his community while this whole thing was developing, right? And I want Richard to do well in life, publicly and personally. But at the end of the day, we're a decentralized blockchain. I think it would be nice to have him involved as much as possible. But at the end of the day, we're all, we can do this on our own, and I feel like we've been doing this somewhat on our own, building and create crazy liquidity pools and setting ourselves up since the ground up of Pulse Chain. So for me, nothing's really changed, but obviously I would like him to be safe and building with us. That would be an amazing feeling if we could finally start building publicly with Richard Heart. I feel like that would be a great shift. But also we can't rely on that either because he's he's getting targeted.
Totally, man. Totally. And yeah, his tweet was admittedly the thing which, because those are the things that I get concerned about straight off the bat as well. Okay, you see the red and stuff, but you're like, oh man, like I hope he's all right. And then seeing that tweet from him was just like, it brought a wave of calmness over me as well. Just seeing that he's okay, it made me okay as well, if that makes sense. So I think without that tweet as well, maybe the reaction in Pulse Chain might have been a bit more severe. But yeah, seeing that he's safe, I think it's good for all of us.
Yeah, and something I wanted to maybe do this with you. I'd be curious to see. So when there's a dip that happens, it's kind of a good opportunity for people to kind of look at what's been recovering the quickest. So I haven't looked before this, but maybe we could look up, the top gainer in the last like 2 hours or something on Pulse Chain. It could be interesting to see. It's a good way to see which token responds well through liquidity or has good community behind it, pushing it back up. It'd be interesting to see.
Great point. Yeah. So now if we just go to /Pulse Chain, Pulse Chain, and I think on the stream that I was just again with Saint Wolf, Axis was saying that what happened here? Axis was saying that a lot of the Atropa tokens recovered very fast, and they had some of the biggest bounces. So what have we got here? So, I mean, really, probably we can't really use the 24-hour and the 6-hour because the 24 hours obviously taking the totality of the 24 hours, and even the 6 hours is not very accurate. So maybe, would you say the 1 hour? Possibly the 1 hour. We'll have a look at the 6-hour as well. So you can see, well,
So it seems like
PTGC.
PTGC and Teddy Bear. I don't really look at those little tokens because those small liquidities can be pumped pretty easily. But
Oh, true. There. So cookies, yeah, 312K. Peasies.
I mean, it's moving pretty good actually.
So,
I can't discount that.
but yeah, Teddy Bear's recovery is phenomenal. Milady, Blast, Teddy Bear. So I'm just looking at this and I'm going, it's probably Moon King who's buying up all these dips. You know, he'd be immune to all these, and these are a lot of his calls. So, and the community that he's fostered as well. Arve, I'm surprised by that one. BFF, that delay, that's doing all right.
Yeah, BFF is going above 8K again. So if anybody was able to scoop up BFF under 8K, that was a no-brainer. That's an easy buy.
Yeah, that was. Is it still below 8K? Have I got it? I don't have.
No, it's passed back now. But that was a great buy if you could buy BFF under 8K.
Yeah, wow. So what else we got here? So Bullseye UFO tied to PTGC. Bullseye, some of the lads, that's tied to a lot of good work with Pt I. Hex has done really well. That's Pulse Chain Hex XUSD. That's done a nice recovery as well. Atropa. And now it's starting to get, hey, Pulse Pup number 31.
Hey, there we go. Climbing that ladder one step at a time.
Nice, man. Nice. G baby. I wonder how much of that I contributed to, because I put my buy bot. I started doing that with my Lao bot, my Lao token with Bayfection. Started buying up G baby on that dip. So
I mean, it has a pretty strong community. So like it's one of the. So I started the TG for G baby just to support. Like I had no idea what it would be. It's like it's a community coin, right? Because it's a Atropa developer made it. But at this point, I made the TG as a place to come together, and I never expected that many people to join. It's actually
there's like 600.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in there. So I think people are kind of like latching onto the idea of a way smaller market cap potential meme for the Atropa ecosystem, and that's kind of what the narrative is. But it's been fun. I really have been enjoying those baby memes and stuff.
And it's been for me as well a really good lesson on the multiplier effect and how its bonding with BFF affected it and affected BFF. So you probably wouldn't have watched, but when I did the stream yesterday looking into it, that's when I first was like, oh, this is the multiplier effect. And you can even see in the charts, maybe I'll just quickly bring it up. You can even see in the charts like how obvious like the move in BFF compared to the move in G Baby. They're identical moves, but G Baby moves like 20x bottom, and
why
BFF
don't you pull up
like,
the chart? Pull up the G Baby BFF chart. It'll be easier to see.
Oh yeah, G Baby and BFF together. I suppose I've never really thought to. I don't really because the way that I'm thinking about multiplier is the rate at which each moves individually and like not connected to each other. So, but let's bring this up.
Try on V2, I think.
And then show the ratio to.
Yeah, it'll do it on its own. So just zoom out a bit. So you can see how it's been pretty similar recently.
Oh, what happened here? Oh, wow, that's really like. Okay, so this is really like the G Baby chart. Oh, wow. Okay, so it's basically showing like, I mean, if this is G Baby to BFF, this is essentially really, this is the G Baby chart, but then this is also really what BFF has done as well, but just on a much smaller degree. So just if you look at, I mean, it's really doing it. I think it's from here, and it's really done on a much smaller degree. Obviously, this dip here is a bit different, but wow, that's a great.
You can see that they've been running together recently.
Yeah,
and it's about all-time high right now compared to BFF.
Wow. Yeah. So it's really started to like break away. It was almost like for this period, it was almost like this helped bring BFF up past the 8K. That's what I sort of got out of analyzing the two together, because the moves looked exactly the same. But yeah,
And
now,
my biggest lesson for what happened with GBaby was I can see that the community in Atropa is craving a memeable token. So
mm,
obviously, a lot of how Atropa sees things, he sees more symbols, or he just sees a contract, right? He sees a potential contract and how he can pair things together to get them moving, etc. So I feel like the community latched on to this one because they were finally able to put a visual to his ticker. Same happened with
mm,
Teddy Bear, because like
mm,
let's say Poppy or TSFI or uh, stay of proceedings or independence, discovery, all those tokens are really hard for communities to actually grasp as far as
mm,
imagery to like really band themselves together as a meme community. So I've kind of seen this as a resurgence around people. The average investor does want to latch on to some kind of an imagery slash understanding what we're doing. And yeah, it's kind of proven that to me in a way, because I've been in Atropa for so long, and I've created so many Telegram rooms for Atropa because I want to create community within that. But it has proven quite hard to get people to rally with something for so long. Uh, if their only reason of moving is because it's connected to Atropa, because then people are like, oh well, they might as well just buy Atropa. And
right.
so that's just been an interesting thing for me to see with a new potential meme in the Atropa ecosystem.
That's a great comment. I never thought of it like that. And quite often as well, I will get those types of comments, and it's just these random symbols. I don't really get it, and it's not easy for somebody to be able to grasp that. It's not easy for people who've been following the Atropa ecosystem for a long time to be able to really sort of discern any kind of meaning behind some of those things. There usually is some kind of deep sort of meaning or something there, but yeah, when, like you said, when it's like some kind of a visual, it really makes it easy for people to grasp that. So I never thought of that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and I've been lucky to be able to meet Atropa, and I kind of understand his mind just like a slightly more than I used to. But at the same time, I don't really get all of it. Even if he explains to me what the meaning of certain tokens are, it kind of will, I'll forget about it in a month or two, or whenever I feel like I understand all the symbols, I know them by heart somewhat. I can see symbols, I can know that's like, okay, that's this one. After a while, if you're not on it, like it's really easy to forget which token's what pair is connected to which pair. That's why I initially designed the maps to kind of help myself to see which symbol is connected to which symbol and how can I go buy that token the quickest way possible. Because that was the early game, was to try to get as early as possible on a token. How can I get to that as quick as possible? So
Mm.
yeah, it's a hard ecosystem to specialize in, and it's obviously harder. It's if to do it casually is really hard.
Yes. And I loved your initial, I've still got them bookmarked, your initial liquidity bubbles. And these days now with the liquidity pool versals .app website, it's just like, it's really quick and easy to be able to understand the flow of where the liquidity can come from and flow through. Just on that, so obviously because you would have met Maria in Amsterdam as well. So how has your understanding evolved based on your very first meeting, where maybe you might have been able to understand, let's say, I don't know, maybe 20% of what he was trying to say? And I don't mean that to undermine you or anything, but just obviously what he says is so in depth. Maybe you understood 80%, because maybe that sounds a bit, maybe, and then maybe in Amsterdam it was like, okay, now you understand 90%. So over the years, or the year, whatever, since you've met him, how has your understanding changed and developed based on what you've heard from him in person?
Well, I wouldn't give myself 90% whatsoever, by the way. I would give myself very considerably a lot lower than that, but I appreciate your boasting there. But yeah, that's an interesting question. As you're speaking, I'm trying to put myself back to who I was back then, which is not the easiest thing to do. But I kind of got obsessed with Atropa and tried to stay on top of it as much as possible. And I think the longer I got into the ecosystem, I appreciated its simplicity in my life a bit more. So I went from like trying to climb the leaderboards on almost every token. I wanted to see my contract address and the top holders of a lot of tokens. I saw it as a video game, right? But I think with time and having learned more, I kind of wanted to be less spread and put myself more really well positioned in some of these larger tokens, such as BFF, Teddy Bear, Atropa, Pt I. So I think it's kind of a lame answer, but I kind of ended up simplifying my strategy a little bit more after having met him and having spent more time in the ecosystem. I've kind of simplified my strategy, even though I hold a lot of these deeper Atropa tokens. I've kind of taken a step back where I've met him, and I feel like I trust this human now. I don't have to go digging quite as deep as I used to. I can really kind of sit back, focus on community, and kind of help Atropa where I can, as in either educating, because I think that's really lacking in the space, is the educational part. Because Maria's always cooking, he's always busy. He's always doing his crazy stuff, and he doesn't really teach as much. He teaches on the blockchain for those who are willing to listen or to watch.
Like G-Baby in the know.
Exactly. So I guess I don't have the best answer for you on that. I'm kind of like a sponge, right? I think I took things in even more the second time I met him. I was able to have breakfast with him and kind of like see him on a human level a little bit more. The first time I was a bit more nervous. We had no idea. Like his face wasn't even doxed at the time. So, we're just sitting in a coffee place, kind of like wondering who the hell this person's going to be. And it turned out it was James Osborne, which we had seen the video before of him many, many years ago, but he obviously had changed his appearance quite a bit since, with long hair and a flair for fashion now. But yeah, I kind of like, it gave me that much more trust that I met him in person again. He's willing to dox himself, and just to sit down and, hang out, have a drink with us was really that much better for me.
I really like what you said about, okay, so I want to jump into this, but I want to ask you a question first. But before I ask you that question, so I don't forget the simplicity of your strategy now. We'll go into that in just a minute. But I also want to ask you, like, how much before you met him, PLSPUP, how well, it's probably going to say it here, right? 1 year and 3 months. So you would have created this along with, as you're exploring what was going on in Atropa with PLSPUP.
Yeah, so I think we met him in January of, I guess, January 2024. I think that was the kind of the time, or late December, I forget. It was so it was about a year ago.
Okay. So it was before, obviously, before Zurich and that. So then obviously PulsePup had been around for a good 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, and I was already heavily bonded with Atropa, but without the knowledge of who he was, because we're kind of just, uncovering things day to day. And I was, buying more of these tokens and then connecting to PulsePup. And then another day he would do another launch, buy those tokens, connected to PulsePup. And then we'd go on and on and on. And obviously the better trader I was, the better PulsePup would become. Because I could scoop up a bigger position, earlier position, and then we would basically ride the wave of the Atropa token pumping from there.
Yeah, I mean, look at this already. This recovery is like so good, man. It's like a 25% recovery basically. So really, really nice job. So
but that one's against Pulse too, just so you know.
Against Pulse, yeah. Exactly. So, but honestly, man, even you like in a very subtle way, you blew my mind with this. Even though I look at ratios all day, it just you can see, it's like you can just see now the strength of G-Baby compared to BFF. It's like, because I'm looking at, say, like Pt I to Atropa, and the strength of the tokens next to each other, the ratio that it fluctuates within is like a sort of small percentage range, maybe like 50 to 100%. So seeing this really shows like this multiplier effect that G-Baby to BFF has. And now again, from that, I'm like, oh, it just kind of like clicks on another level, like the strength of this token when you're talking about wanting to outpace Pulse Chain. Then obviously you're succeeding like tremendously at it. This is where we first started here, and this has done like a 50x to the top since then. So I want to ask you about so the simplicity now that you've spoken about. So I want to ask you a little bit about your liquidity strategy. So you were saying at the start, maybe you tried to get into a lot of tokens and try and get up there at the top and be number one and see PulsePup up there at the top. But how have you now? So what's your strategy now? So you basically kind of focusing more of the attention on, say, Pulse Chain, Atropa, and USDC, or like how's that pivoted and shifted now compared to? I mean, you've got 284 liquidity pools, so awesome job, bro. Like nearly 1 million liquidity. I don't know what that would have been when we first started streaming, but that's amazing, man. Like this is really,
it would have
really
been a lot smaller. And you know, before the dip, we were at over 1 million in liquidity, which is cool. Yeah, I mean,
hang on, I've got it right here because well, actually, it's only this particular liquidity pool, but I had, because this is where I would have bought it. So, or maybe thereabouts. It had about 10K in liquidity, maybe to the Pulse Chain pair at the time. So it's multiplied by 8 times. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of going through a little bit of a change in the way I view PulsePup. I kind of go back and forth. You know, do I want people to buy it? Do I want whales to come into it? Do I like this? That's a serious question that I ask myself. Is like, do I want someone to buy PulsePup? That's it. I think for me as a passive ETF token, that as someone that balances their liquidity ratios all the time and looks at their holders list all the time, is do I let the Pulse liquidity gateway or doorway big enough to attract whales or not? Because 90% of people that are going to be viewing this chart are going to see 82,000 in liquidity, and they're going to be like, that's too small for me. So it's kind of gatekeeping myself from whales that are they're kind of starting to sniff. You know, they're starting to see, oh, maybe I want to see what PulsePup is because I'm seeing it trending or whatever. But then they look at the liquidity and it kind of like doesn't make them want to participate because they don't know that there's actually, you know, 600K in other assets in the liquidity. So I'm coming to a place where maybe I do want to up the pulse ratio to allow bigger boys to come in if they're wanting to. And I want to be quite attached to a Atropa narrative because that's where I come from as well. So I have to maintain those levels really high.
Okay.
But I'm kind of going through a little bit of a shifting in my mind because I was trying to gatekeep myself for the longest time, and maybe I'm starting to let people hear about it a little bit more. Let's just say that, because I think I've streamed with you and a couple people, and I'm not trying to shout this everywhere. You know, I'm trying to use it as an educational tool and a way for me to. It keeps my brain really, really well and active, right? But yeah, I'm basically trying to think if I want to open this up to the world a little bit more.
Because I know the website, you wouldn't have had this website when we would have spoken last, and this is an awesome website, by the way. It's really, really cool. I love it. So
yeah, people like websites, so I decided to get someone to make one. And it's a kind of an easy visual to see, like the moons and the planets. Like PulsePup is a bit of a planet collector, and that's kind of like what's forming the ETF, right? As the PDI, the Atropa, the PWBTC, and all that stuff. So it's kind of it's a visual representation that when you buy PulsePup, you're actually buying the assets, not necessarily just PulsePup. Which, I mean, PulsePup can moon really easily too. So you're buying that ETF, but you're buying every single asset that's connected to.
Of course. So let me ask you about this, because maybe this is something that I wouldn't have understand if we ever went through it. But you've got here like pretty much 53% of the supply has been burned.
Yeah. So my initial burn was 50. So that's where the math equation came in. So we burned about 2% passively through the reflections, because the 50% of the reflections are going to the dead wallet, basically. So we've passively burned 2%.
Okay. And what was the logic? So just for the burn addresses, by the way, everyone, these are the burn addresses. This 000 dead and then 00369. They would have been basically like created when Pulse Chain was created. So you can't really. Someone was asking me if you can create burn addresses, and to the best of my knowledge, you can't really create a burn address, but you can send it to like a random contract, for example, and that's as good as burning it if there isn't some kind of function to withdraw the tokens from that contract. So, but why did you do that? The 50%. What was the logic of? Is this just to basically like deflate the supply and obviously increase the value of the token?
Yeah. So basically, if you burn half the supply, that means you're basically cutting your market cap in half. So I won't get into like the liquidity market cap ratios, but technically, if you don't burn that, the market cap would be at 8 million instead.
Okay, sure. Okay,
So
and then
then I would be a lot less liquid then, first of all. But just to look at if it burned 2%, that's 2,000 PLSPUP, right? And currently at market value, that's about 170,000 US dollars burned passively.
Wow.
So just from that 2% is pretty considerable. So that's the deflationary nature of that. That means that 2,000 PLSPUP will never be able to be sold, and we're extracted from the system. So to me, the deflation is really important. I think, especially if you see this as a more long-term play, it's a slow and steady play. We're just burning as we go, and you know what? This will really help outperform other inflationary assets, even stable assets. We will outperform them over time because of our deflationary nature. That's just how it's going to happen.
And so is one of the reasons why you have so much pulse in liquidity, is that because you mentioned wanting to outpace pulse? So if you're wanting to outpace pulse, would it not make more sense to have, I don't know, for example, like PTGC as your top liquidity pool?
Well, PTGC is kind of a bad example because it has a 5% tax and I have a 1% tax. So the arbitrage isn't going to be that good between them. And then you're not going to really want people to lose 5% while going into your, because basically your top LP is kind of what you're encouraging people to buy your token with. So you wouldn't want to encourage someone to buy your token through a 5% tax token.
Okay.
But your question is still valid. I just view, let's just say the initial design of this token was to create an ETF of Pulse Chain, right? So I also wanted to create a simplicity for someone to enter Pulse Chain and I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea what alternative coins are. I have no idea what Finvesta or PTGC or A1A or Atropa or whatever is. I want to buy an ETF. So I thought that the best thing to do would be to create the best entry would be through Pulse, because all they need is to buy Pulse, and then they can enter PulsePup with the less amount of slippage as possible. So, looking back, obviously, now that we see how things have happened in the last year, obviously I would have put all my liquidity in Pt I, because we know that Pt I did really well, right? Like now we know, but initially when we first paired up to Pt I and Atropa, it was one of the hardest moves we could do because it was super speculative, anonymous person. So the goal is to have the core Richard Heart tokens covered and to have alternative plays also covered, about 50-50. But it's probably leaning a bit more on the alternative end now because it's been outperforming all the Richard Heart tokens. But a year ago we didn't know if the Richard Heart tokens would be doing better or less well than these speculative plays. So I needed to keep the Richard Heart tokens healthy and these connections healthy because I didn't know if they were going to pump or not.
Okay, I see.
Because I can't predict the market that well. Like I was in Atropa and Pt I extremely, extremely early, and I feel super blessed on that. But it wasn't an easy process. Every mega large dips were hard as hell. And people buying Pt I and Atropa now, it's way easier to see the pegging narrative now. It's way easier to see it as being a safe asset because of what's happened and the growth that's happened. But early days, that was a freaking hard hold, man.
Would you say, like how much, if you don't mind, like how much percentage of your portfolio would have been in the Atropa ecosystem very, very early?
Like a majority of it, honestly, like 80-90%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you were
But
really,
yeah, I went
in
hard
the,
on it. I really, I specialize in things. I chose Atropa to specialize in, so my portfolio would kind of reflect that. But obviously, I don't know if it was, if I think about it, I don't know if it was 90% right off the get-go, but it definitely turned into 90% because of how well they've performed, right? And
of
the cores
course.
haven't performed as well. So definitely they've inflated into like an extremely majoritarily, it's basically my portfolio now.
Awesome, man. I think that's something that I'd like to ask you about as well, because we were talking about that in DMs about this concept of, I mean, for me, with Pulse Chain, since I've started going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole with the Atropa, I've seen nothing but abundance all over the blockchain. I mean, whether you go down one of these rabbit holes with any one of these sort of strands of the liquidity web, you have all these different minting things. We've got affection now, we've got dysnomia. There's just so many things across the chain within just like things that are being produced by Maria that there's so much abundance. And so we spoke about this idea of basically kind of picking something and sticking with it. And so you mentioned specialization. So you wanted to specialize in the Atropa token. So can you go into a little bit more detail about that and how that maybe has helped you how that kind of mindset has served you in this particular bull market, maybe compared to say the past, if you have had that kind of experience in the past?
Yeah, good question. So that's an interesting one because my first cycle was 2020, and I think it was a very educational, period of time. But I was also not specialized in anything whatsoever. I thought I was good at DeFi on my first cycle, but I wasn't. The over cockiness happened. So I was spread out on like Phantom, on AVAX, on Polygon, on ETH, on everything basically. And I wasn't specialized in anything whatsoever, and I wasn't early to anything whatsoever. So, I mean, looking back at the time, you always think that you could be an early one, right? But you have to be very aware of what happens in cycles. So this time was kind of the perfect storm for me. I got swept up into Pulse Chain. Atropa came knocking at my door. I think I told you the story last time, how I was in a token, and we got an early Atropa pair by mistake by Maria. So the community kind of got an exposure to Atropa really early, and I went in pretty balls deep from there. And so the timing was right. So we were pre-bull cycle, pre-alt cycle, in something new on chain. So that was just like a beautiful gift to me. It was like I found this by mistake, and I'm in this on these groups that are really into it together. We're a community. We're digging into this every day, and this is kind of a gift. And I have to take this opportunity by the balls, and I'm going to go all in. And it fed the mystery, fed me, and the knowledge that I was gaining on the daily fed me. So it wasn't like it was just like a full grind this whole time. It was like a whole journey of education, of mystery, of what the hell is going on over here. And my wallet's really enjoying what's happening too. It was a whole thing. It's a whole journey, right? So I kind of got swept up, and all the timing was lined up. I met the right community at the right time. Sunny's Pub we were all literally up 18 hours a day in the voice chat for I think it was like 3 months.
Wow.
It was like pre-virality of Atropa. We were grinding in the voice chat for, 12 to 18 hours a day. Some people were just snoring in there sometimes. And yeah, it was a crazy, crazy time. And then I do think that specialization is really important because we all have our, our skills. And maybe for me, it was research at the time. Maybe it was patience. Maybe it was, maybe for me at that time, I was really able to have a lot of spaciousness in my life to be able to dedicate this amount of time in. Everybody can approach that situation differently, but I just saw it as like the greatest opportunity on Pulse Chain at the time, and I think it still is.
Yeah, that's been one of the hardest things, actually, in the sense of I had a particular plan, a particular a strategy that I'd written it all down, but I was not expecting my portfolio to be in as healthy as a situation as it is already because of the Atropa ecosystem and everything that's going on there. I was really not anticipating that. So it's almost been like it's way outperformed my expectations that I haven't been able to very quickly adjust to it. There was my plan was like, sell this and like buy, sell, trade to kind of build your bags up. But it's almost like, is there any need to? Is there any need to? Of course, on days like this, it would have been nice to have taken some profit at the local top, but also at the same time, it's kind of cool not to be too concerned about it either. So, yeah, specializing, I think, is really, I mean, even within this, there's so many avenues that you can go. There's so many avenues that you can go just within the Atropa ecosystem. So, while we're on that, what do you think about this recovery? Do you think? I mean, this is a strong bounce on. I mean, this is against the US dollar, so it's not really. I mean, that's almost a 100% bounce.
I mean, yeah, it tapped to the support really nicely too.
Exactly. Tap the support. PDI now has, I'll just move this for a second. Wow. So it came all the way down to like 0.8 cents, and now it's all the way up past, 1.6 cents. I mean, that's insane. I mean, what are your, are you thinking that we're still going to have it's still going to come down steadily for a little bit, and this is just like the first buyers and there's going to be some sellers coming in? What's your general feel towards it?
Yeah, you're probably not going to like my answers for price predictions because I wouldn't claim to know what's going to happen. All you need is a whale waking up wherever in the world, maybe Europe, and being like, I'm done with this, and sells $1 million of something, and then we go back down to something. Or the opposite is true, is that a whale wakes up and sees what's happening on ETH or something, or like someone from ETH comes over and just drops a few million, and then my prediction's gone. So I can't really claim any of that. I think it was a healthy correction, and I was expecting something like this to happen because we did have a major up. Like people don't forget what just happened a month ago. The up that we just did. What is that? A 20x?
Yeah. It was insane.
And we go down 40% for like a few hours, and people will freak out. It's like,
yeah,
like to me, it's a healthy pullback and a really nice buying opportunity. I scooped up some coins, and if it goes up, great. If it goes down, you know what? I'm going to be buying more. It's just how it is. And I'm not gonna throw all my bag at the low either. I'm gonna DCA back in, because we could have a pullback even on this chart to to hit that trend line again.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, that's my kind of, even though it's extremely like a bullish narrative, my gut feel tells me that we've had this massive spike up, very strong recovery, but I still think it's gonna come down for a little bit. It's really probably going to depend on the rest of the crypto market, which I'm like just very short term bearish on the next week or two. So it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. So
yeah, give it a month to breather, and then see, you can readjust your strategy from there. I think it's just bringing like a bit of maturity to the market. Is that if someone did sell at the low here, unfortunately, at the 5 cents 5 cent Atropa, let's say someone sold Atropa at the 5 cents, That's just a brilliant lesson, honestly. I had people messaging me about at that low that they were going to sell. So that's a great lesson for things recover quite quickly, and you'll be left behind. Well, and you want to be on things. So if you sell into PLS, guess what? You're going to get outperformed by the assets next to it.
And the people that were saying that they wanted to sell down here, was that coming from a place of fear? Was that coming from a place of like greed, where I got to sell now because it's going to keep going lower, and I want to scoop up some more? Like, where do you think that?
Yeah, it was mainly around fear, and I think it's around people that let's say onboards that don't really know the whole story, or they haven't put their time in. It's more like, oh, is it over? That was kind of like the question. And right. For people like us, we're on it all the time. Is okay, this doesn't change much. I'm actually going to buy from here. I think it's just a lack of experience, or just like over investment, or there's a lot of reasons. Just fear in general, I think.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to, obviously we'll have a particular mindset and a particular outlook, and sometimes you kind of like expect everybody else to do it, but we might be the outliers. I don't know if we are, but we might be the outliers. And so the vast, maybe like, let's say, I don't know, 70 to 80% of the market is still like in panic mode, and they're really looking at this going, right, I wanted to go just a little bit higher before I sell. I wanted to go just a little bit higher before they sell, and then their greed will be kicking in. And so, for me, it's just a very, okay, we've had this anomaly, this black swan event, but it still doesn't make sense from like a chart structure point of view for now. It just start going up now. Okay, it's going up, but I don't see that it's just going to keep going up all of a sudden. I think that there's still going to be like a little bit of uncertainty and fear, and it's going to come down a little bit more. It just makes a lot of sense as well from like a chart health perspective. So
yeah, I could see that happening for sure. Like even if you look on the PLSPUP chart right now, in the US dollar, like I think I remember this morning I woke up at about $98, and we're at $89 now. So I'm not. It's not that bad of a dip, honestly.
No, it's really not. Exactly, that's the thing, and I think that's also what, in a way, it also makes me more bullish as well, because it's like for what just happened, but we're developing nerves of steel. Like the whole market's going, right, we've seen this before, we know what's going on, but then also it's very likely that a lot of people are just away, and then they're, it's like Christmas time now as well. I mean, you even see like your viewer numbers. I mean, on St. Wolf's and mine this morning, the viewer numbers are really low because people are they'll be out with family and friends and whatever. So maybe when they get back, they're not really in tune with the market. They'll just see this thing that happened to Richard Heart, and oh gosh, it's recovered now 20%. I'm going to quickly sell. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. So hopefully everyone can kind of just take care of themselves.
The best lesson, or the best thing you could say, is to be ready for both situations. So
right,
be in the market enough where you're not going to feel bad if it goes up, and don't be in the market too much where if it goes down, you're going to be ruined. That's kind of like, right. You got to find your own personal sweet spot. Some people are playing in the millions, some people are playing in the 100,000s, some people 10K, some people $100. So it does not really matter. It's about how much that money represents to you. If $100 is too much to lose, then you have to adjust your situation. Similarly to someone that's playing with $1 million as well. So be ready if it goes up, be ready if it goes down. And that's kind of like, that's been my golden rule, and it's been pretty good so far.
Nice, beautiful. Now, is there anything else that you want to talk about with PLSPUP specifically before we pivot a little bit into PUPLAU?
No, I think it is more of a teaser I can give later at the end of the show. But as far as the coverage, it's there's nothing really. It's just a slow and steady token that seems to outperform a lot of other tokens. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's really because I remember obviously like yours is much more quote unquote actively managed compared to Sunny's A1A. So it's like these two different. I'll get it just compared to Pulse Chain. It's like these two different styles of ETFs with different. When you go to like Vanguard, it's like different kinds of. Yours would be like the more risky profile because it's being managed. It's in maybe Sunny's is more diversified, so it can spread out the risk.
There's probably three general things that are different. And there might be more, but just three things that comes to mind is the fact that he has a B2B attached, which that allows him to have that as his largest liquidity, which is at pretty heavy right now. The second thing would be that PLSPUP has 50% burn, which allows it to be deflationary. And the third is like maybe I am a bit more actively managing it. That means that the liquidity pools are not burned, and a lot of the A1A pools are burned. So it's a bit more of a maybe you could sleep better knowing you hold A1A because it's gonna the distribute. He doesn't own a lot of it, and his liquidity pools are mostly burned. So that's something I could give him props for. For me, I own a lot. I own a lot of the supply, and I have access to the liquidity pools, so I can actively manage it. And that can be great I can pivot on narratives, but that also spreads the risks to the holders where I could potentially injure the token by either over trading. I can make a mistake. Like earlier, I was seeing some really intense drops in the PWBTC, so I decided to withdraw about 50% of the PWBTC. So I thought I could maybe out trade what was happening. And if I'm able to make a good trade, then that's great. But if I miss trade, then that can mean that we're going to have less PWBTC attached to PUP.
That's because that's actually something that I've been thinking about with the Dysnomia token. Well, with my little liquidity setups, that concept, it's like, okay, maybe when you're at a top, but then also when you're at a top, it's also a good time for it to get filled up with liquidity if you're high enough on the food chain as well. Whenever there's cells that are coming through, I mean, if it's biggest pairs with Pulse Chain and then you're like halfway down, it probably makes sense if you can pull that off to pull the liquidity or half the liquidity and then re-put it back in at a low. But if you're all the way up the top, it's kind of just let it be and then let the volume flow through it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the most passive thing you could do is kind of just let it sit and let it auto compound, and that's that's usually the best thing to do unless you're an extremely good trader to time tops and bottoms. But sometimes I'll play a little risky and I'll try to give an advantage to my holders and get PLSPUP to actually do some major moves. But it's rare, I see it more as a passive thing. And I'll do buybacks on it, and I'll trade other things, and I'll put economic energy into PLSPUP that way. I think I like it better just to do strict buybacks and less about liquidity movement these days, anyways.
Strict buybacks. Sorry, can you just clarify what you mean by buybacks?
Yeah, I prefer to trade other things these days. Like let's say I'm able to get a token early, and to trade that and get it into stable coins and then just do buybacks on PLSPUP and then let my LPs do its thing and not try to play with my LPs too much these days. Cause I feel like I don't really want to be a trader anymore. I kind of want to make large, smart moves and not really be daily active.
Gotcha. So you'll let's say the new token launches, you get in early, you take profit. Let's say you get a 10x, you put that into a stable coin, and then once it's in a stable coin, you're buying it in. You're buying PLSPUP with those stables to pump PLSPUP.
Yeah, and I used to do more okay, I'll get a launch and I'll pair it with PLSPUP right away, and I'll ride that wave up, which has been great on some launches. But it also does a lot of impermanent loss. Sometimes it would have just been good for me to keep that launch, make a profitable trade, and then transfer that economic energy into straight buybacks from there. It's just like a different style of doing it.
When you would do that, when there is a launch, do you kind of have maybe a percentage that you would, because the amount of percentage in liquidity that you would have with your PLSPUP with that other token is going to affect the rate at which it moves. Is that right?
Yeah, can you repeat that one? Sorry.
So the amount of your PLSPUP that the percentage of the PLSPUP that you would put into the liquidity with, say, a new token launch is going to affect how much it's going to move, right? So if you only put like, I don't know, 0.1% of PLSPUP into that liquidity pool with this new token, it's not going to, the new token launch, even though it does like a big pump, it's not going to drag up all of PLSPUP a lot.
Exactly.
Compared to like so do you have like a percentage that you kind of stick with where you like, if you do that strategy, like, okay, well, I'm going to do it with like every new token launch, I'll put like 5% of PLSPUP in there and write it up and then take some out. Do you have
Well,
like
you know what's interesting now? So that's why I've had to change my strategy a little bit more. It's because now that the market cap of PLSPUP is so high, to make it the LP dominant enough to move it, I would have to, like I told you earlier, I think it's 1% is like 80K or something right now. So I can't really buy $80,000 of something at launch to pair 1% of PLSPUP with it. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot smaller percentages. It'll be like 0.001%. So now it doesn't really make a big difference on PLSPUP anymore, unless I catch like the new UFO or the new PTGC or the new Solid X early or something like that. Then it would make a big difference to my chart.
Gotcha.
But I can't really do that with any like common launches anymore like I used to, because we're just kind of too heavy for smaller tokens to impact us as much.
Gotcha. Yeah, this is where the Lao tokens become quite powerful when you just start with something small. And I think people really underestimate the power of starting small. Obviously, we had that incident with Zach that happened, which was very unfortunate. But I think as harsh as it is for Zach, it's a good lesson for both for Zach and for everyone, really. Like, there's no need to rush into it. Just start small, build it up over time, slow and steady. Slow and steady. I think it's a really important principle, because it's really how things are in life. There's no quick fixes, there's no shortcuts, unfortunately, as nice as it would be. So it's almost like, yeah, just build things up steadily and do it the right way.
What's interesting in that story, for anybody that's going to be launching not just a Lao token, but like any token in general, is knowing your holders list is extremely important. So understanding that people actually own your token because they either bought it or if they're able to get a small amount of the supply at first. So usually you don't want to be pumping your token too quickly before you can gauge your holders' behaviors. So whenever, like you can see on my chart on the USD, there was some large dips that happened, and that was mainly getting rid of large whales that bought early. Okay, so the first dip that we got like in October, like of 2023, like the first candle basically. Yeah.
Yep.
So that one was getting rid of like a 3 to 4% whale right off the bat, right? So then we had to consolidate, and I just let the market do its thing. And then I think we lost another whale at one point, and then that's when I can start deciding to inject capital within my ecosystem. So I understand that no one owns enough tokens for them to hurt my chart, so I can pump it. Okay, so I can pump it when no one actually can really hurt my token. So whenever someone exits really large of my token, I'll just pump it after that. It's a statement, but it's also you got rid of a whale, and that's really key to growing in the future. And what happened with Zach is that he was unaware that a whale was in his token, and then he pumped it a bunch. So if you give people profit too quickly, they will withdraw. They will siphon your liquidity, and that's just how it is. And I've seen it. You know, I've been hurt by it, but you know what? I don't go publicly saying this person did this or whatever. I take responsibility. My chart went down. It's a whole journey as far as a developer that people get your supply, and then how do you deal with your chart from then on? Like, so what happened is he pumped it too high. So let's say I pump PLSPUP by 10x right now. I would get up to $900. Of course, people are going to be draining that LP. It's just how it is. You can't give people profit too quickly. Same with PDI. You have to have that slow, gradual exit of people for then you can move forward. You can't give people 20, 30, 50 X's on one day. It's just how it is, in my opinion. And, I love Zach, and there was some confusion that happened, but also an inexperience of running a token or understanding that someone had his token, and he pumped his chart and put fresh liquidity at the top.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a really good discussion. I actually really enjoyed it. At first, obviously, I'm even though I have a lot of emotional control, I also still, it's generally my first impulse. So when I'd seen it and then reading the comments, it was like, oh, what, someone's like dogged Zach. And that was like, oh man, this sucks. Like, humans suck. And then more information comes out. It's like, okay, all right, this is, unfortunately, this is what happens. This is part of the game. And I'm sure, for example, Zach's probably sold on other people in, I don't know, any other chart, for example. It's just, sadly, it's part of the game. It's just the time scales are different. I know, like, even C7, Brizology was really criticizing the launch. And yeah, it sucks. It wasn't great. It dumped. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, are we going to hold for 2 years and dump on each other, or hold for an hour and dump on each other? What's actually the difference?
One thing that people have to understand is that launching is extremely hard.
Yeah.
Because like coins get sniped out the wazoo. And, I haven't looked into like these more famous cases like Haktua or whatever, but things get sniped so badly. And then people underestimate with someone that has 2 to 3% of your token, how much that can hurt you really quickly and even long term. Like, you want to get rid of those people as quickly as possible, and then you're going to get a mega red chart. That's what happens at launches usually, especially if it's public. If you're Zach, if you have a public persona, if you're Haktua, if you're whatever, I from day one, I launched it with 2 friends on the voice call, and I was like, guys, I have no idea what I'm doing. Don't buy too much. And then I have no idea. So, and then that worked out for me because no one really bought it early. And that allows me to ride into the sunset with like no large holders except for myself. And launching is really hard. I don't recommend it for everybody. It's going to be a ride, an emotional roller coaster. Like, it can be, especially if it's a public thing. If it's a LAO or whatever, no one has any expectations on it. But I feel bad for some people. Like, I don't know, C7 or whatever his name is, G7 or I don't know that guy, but it's hard. They have good intentions, but then they just get like, they don't have the experience. And snipers are deadly good. They're so good. You have to have those precautions in place.
Yes, I think and there's a lot of people who like, I'm getting a lot of comments or requests about launching tokens, and I think there's a kind of misconception when people see a chart like this and the success that you've had, the success that Sonny's had with A1A, they think that it's easy because this chart makes it look easy because it's such a beautiful chart, but it's not that easy. Like, you've put a lot of thought into this. There's hundreds of liquidity pools. You're having to manage it. You're having to strategize it. You're having to like account for these holders and the whales and keep that at the back of your mind in how you're actually moving the chart. Like, I don't think it's as easy as what something like this makes it look to be.
Yeah. And like, whenever you see it, it's kind of more flat, like the first few months. And then maybe from, May to September 2024, those times are boring as hell and extremely expensive, because guess what? People are selling and people aren't buying. Guess who's buying? I am.
Just you, yeah.
So I have conviction, and I'm spending a ridiculous amount of money on some of these stretches, you know. So
Mm,
it's also an expensive thing. You don't have to make the buybacks, but I care about my shit. So I'm going to be, no
mm,
one else is buying, so I'll buy. Sure.
mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I, I, I've personally always liked the idea of just having something and then making an ETF of your own that doesn't need outside forces. I feel like this idea, I mean, it's great if people come and pump your token, but I just like the idea of being able to like manage something without the, because there's always someone on the opposite side of the trade. If you start selling down or whatever, there's always someone on the opposite side that's being sold into. So it's kind of, I don't know. I'd like to just avoid that. I like the idea of having this as like some sort of self-autonomous bank rather than, this token that I'm trying to build up this community with. And yeah, I mean, it's good that people want to do that. There's no like, it's great, but I just think that people need to be mindful of the fact that it takes a lot of time, and it's when you look at a chart
Yeah.
like this, it makes it look easy.
Yeah. And I think what you're on with the, being your own autonomous bank and having control and gaining the 1% fees and using the arbitrage bots to trade. And, there is that compounding that happens there. But there's
Mhm.
also you have to remember that the blockchain is free speech, and people can do whatever they want. So if you start
Mm,
this, if you start this yourself, someone could moon you 4x right off the bat. So someone could buy enough of your tokens, and you can't stop them from buying your token. But they
mm,
can get an increased holder position and basically hold you hostage,
mm.
because all your savings, all your APR that's going in there, they moon you 4x early, and then let's say the ecosystem keeps going up, and that means that their position maybe 4x's in the future, and they can actually extract from your bank.
Right. Yeah. So you really have to monitor, and this is why it's like, if it, like I'm getting some questions about even how to start like a liquidity pool, and if it's something that, and again, I'm no expert, but if it's something where you're not even familiar with starting a liquidity pool, then trying to jump into creating a liquidity web, you probably at that point of, if you've never created a liquidity pool, you probably haven't interacted with the block explorer, so you probably maybe not too familiar with like even this concept of holders. So here we can see, okay, who's the, I'm imagining maybe this is you, this is
Yeah,
the,
yeah, that's my public wallet. You can put it in DBank and see what happens. Like that's fully public. Like it's not a big deal. But what I take pride in is that no one owns an over 1% of the token.
yeah, so no one can come along and wreck the chart, and you've got a good distribution of holders there, which is nice.
Well,
But
yeah, you see, if you go lower, and the last person on the page has 0.001. So
yeah.
I think that's just an extremely well distributed token, and I take pride in that. And that took patience. It's me not shilling it to everybody, and it's just like a slow growth. And I really, really love that no one has that much control over my chart. I mean,
Mm,
some of the 1% is a lot of money now. That's the thing. So eventually that 1% becomes a big holder.
right,
But
right.
if you look at other tokens that have even larger market caps than I do, I'm not going to say any names, but some holders lists have 5, 4, 3, 3, 3, 3, 2. They have all these percentages that are really, really heavy at $100 million market cap. So that means that 5% can make extreme damage, basically, on the
Yeah,
chart.
sure,
Yeah,
sure. Same as the same concept as what we saw with Hex. The liquidity to the market cap ratio is so gigantic that it moves the price up very fast, but it also moves it down very
exactly.
fast
And
as
if
well.
someone has
So
1% of Hex, they can actually crush that price so easily.
exactly, which is, yeah, which is a scary thing as a Hex OG. Um, so let's talk a little bit about your Pulse Pup now. Pup Lao. It's Pup Lao, right?
Yeah.
So what's the, have you, I just want to look at it from the perspective of a, let me just get the contract up here. I want to think about it from the perspective of how you've approached this differently to, let me just bring up the oldest one. Okay, or one.
By the way,
month.
people watching, no need to buy this. It's just for education purposes only.
Yeah, this is and by the way, yeah, I mean these are like it's for a game, and there's a lot of things that we don't fully understand. We don't know what's going to happen. There's even things in the contract that people aren't fully familiar with. So yeah, I wouldn't be diving into this. And like the whole idea of like creating a liquidity web, it's good, it's fun, but you know, Steadypup's done it with PulsePup. You don't need to do it with the Dysnomia ecosystem. You can just go to GoPulse and create a token like that. So there's no, the difference here is that it's going to be some kind of a game. So I wanted to ask you, like, how have you, because this is your second token, right? Like you have PLSPUP and then just this one?
Yeah, I just have the two.
How have you approached this differently compared to, or like, how was your experience with PulsePup maybe change the way you're treating PupLau, or are you a lot more like blasé about PupLau, or are you kind of applying some of the lessons that you've learned with PulsePup? How are you treating PupLau?
Yeah,
now?
I can tell the story a little bit just so people can kind of get it. But basically, when the Laos first came out with Dysnomia and stuff like that, I think I had taken about 3 weeks off. I had gone to Burning Man and did a little bit of traveling, and I was kind of I was taking a bit of a rest when that happened. So when I got back to my computer desk, there was a bunch of community that kind of started to really, really love the Lao concept. So I was kind of late on it. I was kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this. I have my thing. I'm happy to stay focused on something that I'm specialized in. And I got convinced on making a Lao. And as of currently, I've used it somewhat similar to how I've designed PulsePup, because that's how I know how to do it. So I made a decent amount of liquidity because I didn't want to like mess around with like small pools and stuff like that. I kind of wanted to just start as a fat token, like a normal token. And that's what I'm trying to say is like, I wouldn't consider myself a specialist in this whatsoever. And I wouldn't encourage people to try if they don't understand it either, because that's what happened with Zach. And I hate people, because he invested a fair bit of money in it, and I invested a decent amount of money in the Lao without understanding it that well. But I have a community beside me that can help me and has helped me in the past. And mine, for some reason, people like saw me launch it, right? So they were like, finally, like, okay, PulsePup number 2 type of thing. And I was like, no, that's not how it's happening. Don't actually go ape shit in this one, because it's highly experimental and it's mintable, and we don't fully know the contract. So a lot of people kind of got into it, were pumping it, and I was trying to tell people in DGen groups to like kind of calm down, don't buy it, but they kind of thought it was like my next up and coming project, which, I still care for PupLau, but I kind of see it more as a passive play. And it is a character token that you can chat with in the Dysnomia. So it's very different. People don't know what's going on. And it's a character that could have interactions with in the future. So we don't know if it's good for it to have high market cap. We don't know if it's good for it to have a lot of liquidity or not. So for me, it's an experiment. And you can see that I hold 49% in that wallet. And then the second wallet is my pup wallet, 10% burned. And then it's a contract. And then the rest would be just holders from there. LP contract, and then another LP contract. So it's pretty well distributed. But at the same time, I don't want to encourage anybody buying it, because we don't know if it's vulnerable or not in the game itself. We just want to put that warning out that, there could be a curse spell on it, or there could be some kind of a weird thing. And I don't want my community to be targeted by any of that. And I don't really want to be like targeted by anything either. But it's just like something I'm not that aware of. It's like, I wanted to create it to be in the community, and for me to actually want to learn more about it if I invested money into it. It's like, okay, I'll put some money into it. I'll create this. And then maybe that'll entice me to learn more and to jump into this Dysnomia thing a bit more. Because I love the community, and yeah, I just wanted to join, right?
Sure. And so have you basically seeded this from PLSPUP, or is this like a lot of fresh liquidity, or have you grown the liquidity with it through the minting and then the buying back, or like how have you grown this so far?
Yeah, I think I'd have to grab my piece of paper, but I think I put like, I think it's about a 4x from what I actually put in. Yeah. I think I might have put in like 10 grand or something. 10 grand.
Which a lot of that is also probably going to be having to do with this would have been in October, I believe, the Dysnomia. So, or where have you started? Yeah, October, end of October. So obviously the movement of the chart has the pulse chain has moved it all up with the 4x probably as well, right?
Yeah, it has moved with the ecosystem, and there has been a minor amount of buyers. But yeah, it's kind of creating something similar to PulsePup, but without the tax. And it's just giving, because I knew it was going to pump too, honestly. I knew the chain was going to pump. And, you know, pairing liquidity with the chain allows your token to go up. So I'm just setting myself up earlier than better. If that puts me in a better position for the video game where I have a big token, maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. I don't know. But I do need to look into it a bit more, honestly, with all this Zach stuff, and just want to make sure that my holders are safe and that my capital is safe and stuff. I'm not fearful of it. I just want to, knowledge is key, right?
100%. I definitely feel the same. Because I'm pretty much the only one that's talking about Dysnomia. There was also a part of me that was like, I should be maybe presenting it with much more clarity and certainty, but I'm just trying to figure out what's going on as well. But because I'm on YouTube, people think that I'm some kind of an expert, which is, yeah, it's a bit frustrating, to be honest, because yeah, I certainly don't feel that way. And yeah, based on the understanding of some people in the game, it's like a very basic level of understanding. So yeah, I also think it's a good idea to caution people on that as well. So I think I kind of jumped the gun a little bit on what this means, but we really, seeing what happened with Zach really kind of changed my perspective and made me think I got to slow down.
I would assume that the development of Maria in the future with this contract would be in a benevolent way. I would assume it would be not to like hurt us and stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure it'll go well, but I can't really like push it, and I won't push this token with PulsePup. I know the contract has been bulletproof, tested. It's been through the ringer for over a year and a half. And this one, it's working, but we don't know if it's going to have changes in the future to have access to the game and stuff like that. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that this is more of an experimental thing, and none of us really know what he's going to do with these in the future.
I think the way that I kind of approached it was I missed Atropa. I missed the start of Atropa. And I didn't want to miss the start of Dysnomia. I didn't know what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, but I just figured Maria's a lot smarter than I am, and he'll have it worked out in some way. So I'm just going to try and get in early and start trying to work it out early. So that's kind of how I've approached it. So I also don't think that like long term it's going to be fine, but still, yeah, it's really good to be careful, I think. So.
And it's mintable as well, so you got to really trust the person that's launched the token.
Exactly.
So you got to trust, Steven. You got to trust other people. Because I can mint this. So right now I think it's at what, $45. I can mint like 3,000 of these if I wanted to. So that means I love deflationary stuff. So this is actually inflationary potentially. I never plan on doing it, but if I need to do it during the game, it just gives flexibility. But it's not necessarily. I don't like inflation in general. So that's why I was kind of against it at first. I like deflation.
Understood. Yeah, so this is really just another little experiment. So I've been keeping my eye on this. So here's me all the way down here. So So gotta buy some more pup lao. Yeah, cool, man. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to kind of talk about or share? Or you were mentioning earlier that there was something that you wanted to share at the end of the stream. There was some sort of like a teaser.
I think one thing I just wanted to say, whenever someone learns that I do crypto, is they kind of have in mind that I'm trading, I'm being super nerdy with like 8 screens and it's super nerdy in math and everything. I just wanted to kind of say that I think the crypto industry needs to kind of open up a little bit, where people might feel like a bit more invited with their talents. I think Pulse Chain's done a pretty good job in like supporting people like you that, go on YouTube and educate, and more artists and such. Or I've been just having a lot of women come up to me and like, it's like, how can I participate in crypto? And a lot of women don't, from what I've seen, don't really just want to be trading. And I don't want to see crypto just as being clicking buy and sell. There's so many different things you can do as far as producing content, social media, community manager, artist. And I just have a hard time seeing these women like think they're just going to be trading 8 hours a day on a screen. Is like, you're not going to make it. But I just want to like maybe start a conversation of what you think, how we can be more inclusive, and because crypto is an industry, right? It's not just someone clicking buy and sell. I think I want us to move towards that a bit more, because I have so many artistic friends that would get crushed in crypto, and they, you know what? They want to get involved in crypto, but they're going to get crushed.
So first, I just want to ask first, like you say women, why specifically women have been approaching you? Is there some, like, what's the connection there?
Well, I think we're starting to see Bitcoin approaching, passing 100K. So that's a big line, right? And I think people are starting to talk. Normies are starting to talk again, just like 20 and 21. So I think we're getting a mass amount of onboarding that's happening in, our communities or whatever. And some of those people asking are now, women and men too, honestly. I'm just being a bit more mindful on how the space can be a bit negative and gatekeepy. And, we've had, I don't know, for some reason, I've had a lot of women approach me wanting to learn more how they can be a part of the community that's less directed towards like making profitable trades, like on the 1 hour or whatever. It's more like, how can they contribute to communities, community management, art, website design. I'm just more seeing that energy that's needed.
Interesting. Yeah, honestly, the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of something like that is really just existing within the Atropa ecosystem, and it's one of the things that I really love about it. You don't have a look at these charts, man. Like, what's same as PLSPUP as well, right? It's almost like you don't need to be like an epic trader. You can just kind of like come into some kind of community and let the other people who are better at this kind of stuff do that. And then, yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer. Like, I know what you're saying, and I feel like we should be heading more in that direction, where it's more, you look at Sunny's Pub, for example. You look at someone like Vivian, and Vivian feels like a very specific niche, where she's like, she does like awesome AI art, like cool music, and really like contributes to the culture of Sunny's Pub and A1A. So having more of that, and having more like open, inviting, like non-competitive kind of communities and that's something that I really like about the Atropa ecosystem. I feel like it has more of that energy than some of the other communities around, well, in crypto in general, where you just kind of make this meme, and the aim of the game is to just kind of spam Twitter and get other people to see it so that they can buy it. I don't really there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. You guys can do it. But I'm just like, it's kind of boring to me. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to make it more open to them and make it easier for them. I'm kind of hoping like Pulse Chain will grow into that. It feels like it's growing into that, but we're in the period of Pulse Chain where, I mean, if you've never been into crypto and then you've got to like bridge assets across, I mean, even that is like a very difficult thing. And I've been monitoring the chat. I haven't been able to answer. I haven't been able to answer a lot of these kinds of questions. Do you know what? Yeah, just for the record, I wasn't saying like why women. I just was wondering like why women specifically. I mean, I've seen a picture of Steadypup as well. I'm like, okay, maybe that's why the women are coming up to him a lot more. So, but I just wondered why women specifically. And I think it's a wonderful thing. I would love to see our blockchain have more of a feminine energy as well. I mean, I look at someone like Whitney. I mean, we've got a lot of great girls in this community, but someone like Whitney, who's like really in the crypto education space. So yeah, I just think at the minute with where Pulse Chain is, it's almost like we're too much in the nerdy phase of like, it's so cutting edge. It's so DeFi that if you've never even bought something on a centralized exchange, going into this area of cryptocurrencies, the learning curve is quite steep. So
yeah, that's interesting. I think it's mainly just my current experience where, because I can share my experience with people and how I've kind of made it in the space. And honestly, I've made some great trades, but the trading isn't what set me up to where I'm at right now. It's having committed to a space, committed to a narrative that I believe in, but also creating Telegram chats for people to, educating people, creating websites for projects, creating logos, creating stickers for people to rally around something and that's kind of what set me apart in some ways. And I think there's just so much more room for people to create community. And I would love for just have more normal people come in where it's not just, oh, I can trade the chart, I can snipe the chart quicker than you, I'm the best at this. It's like there's so much room for just normal people to come in and help with the website, help with education, help with just, I don't know. I've just seen a bit more. We're pretty like elitist and niched in. I think I spend all my days in Telegram, so I really see that and witness that. Even in myself, if someone asks a stupid question, sometimes like 90% of the time I'm happy to answer, but even 10% of the time I'm like, oh, can't really do that right now.
Yes, I also have noticed this as well. Yeah, my brain is just like, especially when I'm really, really tired, I'm just like, oh boy, I don't want to answer this. So I think it's going to happen organically. I really do. And I think if there's going to be any place where it happens, I mean, I'm very biased towards this community, but I think because just the level of consciousness here it seems higher. It's higher than what you would get on Solana, and in my opinion, whether that's a very subjective thing, but it just seems like we're on a higher frequency than other kinds of blockchains. So just naturally, those things are going to naturally grow. When we see people like Whitney starting to come up in the space, and more people like that, maybe Margarita Villain here can really start to bring women here. And once it's easier for them to become assimilated in the communities, then they can find their own ways to be themselves. And that's what DeFi is all about. Like it's decentralized. It's like freedom of speech, freedom of movement. You can do and be whatever you want on the blockchain. It shouldn't just be about like, chasing the next thing and getting a 10,000x. And again, that's why I love the whole Atropa ecosystem, because you really, I mean, people often ask me, what's the best token? It's like, pick one. There's like over 100. Okay, this one might end up doing by the end of the bull run an extra 1x or an extra 2x or 3x, but does it really matter in the context of life and the whole bull run? Not really. So when you have an ecosystem that you don't need to be a pro trader, I mean, even if you bought these tops, all you had to do was hold, and the math and the logic of what Maria's doing is facilitating upward momentum.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point for sure. That's why I tell people, just choose 1 to 3 Atropa tokens and stick with it. You don't need to dive into these crazy things. That you can leave that to me or Steven, to figure that stuff out. But honestly, like, focus on building community and having fun in chats and learning. That's kind of trying to push people more towards that. And certain type of brains will latch on to narratives like we do. Certain type of brains will be better at doing the publicity or animation, or like we need to grow a lot in this space. So I just want to have more people have access to it.
Do you find that there's a lot of so with some of these women that are coming up to you and asking about it, is their preconception that, okay, well, I'm just going to be able to buy this thing and it's going to go up and I'm going to be rich? Or like, from what place are they kind of really interested in crypto?
Yeah, I think like most people, like men or women, they're like, okay, I've heard this hype thing. I heard that BTC did to $100,000. Like, wow, like that could really change my life. Like, I want to make money. I want to be invested in something. Maybe I don't want to be in stocks. Maybe I want to try something different. So kind of it starts from that. And then what I usually lead into is like, okay, that's all good. Like, you want to make money. Cool. But what are you good at? And how do you want to make your money? That's kind of like you can just buy and hold and like keep working your job. You can keep doing your thing, which like 90% of people will do. They'll buy a Atropa or something and then just continue doing what they're good at in real life. But what I'm trying to say is like, okay, well, buy a Atropa, but you're also, you can pull back the curtain a little bit and see that your actions might actually help your investment. That's what I try to get people to understand, because in my first cycle, I would buy, let's say, Matic or Phantom, and I would just fuck around watching YouTube and stuff, learning, right? But I was not putting any time into working for either engaging communities or talking to developers or making websites or actually getting people talking about this token I'm into. So it's really like, you can actually have an impact on your investment by doing stuff on chain. And that's what I like. Okay, honestly, I missed G-Baby completely. Like, I missed it completely. And I started the TG chat. Why? It's because I saw an opportunity there that I completely missed the massive gains, but I saw a narrative and I saw a lot of people that wanted to talk about it. And so I created a logo, blah, 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 facilitated the website that's going to come out soon. That's just like, that's one of my skills, is to bring community together and have fun in the chat room. So I don't necessarily have a lot of G-Baby, but that's just what, I ended up buying some eventually, and now I'm working on it, but it's just something I'm good at. So I'm going to be helping people with that. I don't know. I don't always necessarily operate through greed in that way, but yeah, it's an interesting way of operating. I just want to give people opportunities to, like, hey, you can actually take somewhat control of your investments, not just investing in Bitcoin and hope it goes up. It's like, dig into the community and help out.
I think I love where you're going with it, and I think it's just going to happen naturally. I think it's something that we should always just keep having conversations about and bringing it to the forefront, like we are doing now, to keep it in people's minds. And obviously, like, with this channel mindset, whenever I do like an Atropa movement, or well, particularly with the first one, I'd go into like, what are the things that I love about Atropa, with the whole mindset around it, and kind of just bringing those things to the front all the time. And so this same thing that you're trying to bring to the front with the community, I mean, even I think keep bringing it to the front, and it's going to the right kinds of people are going to gravitate towards, like, if we keep putting that energy out, the energy is going to come back. Even if you look at some of the maxis like HFID, KDP, they're very powerful members of the maxi community, and they didn't just come out of nowhere, right? They've organically grown up in the Hex and Pulse Chain community. And so now we're starting to see that hopefully happening more and more in these like sub communities within Pulse Chain. So I think if we just keep discussing it, putting the energy out, then the right kinds of people come along.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to bring up. It's just like there's so much opportunity on chain, and it might not be as many people think it is, as far as just clicking to buy high, buy low, sell high. I just wanted to bring up that it's like so many opportunities for talented artists to create things, because most of us nerds that are trading are shit at designing stuff, and I just happen to do it a bunch of times because no one else is doing it, but I'm not good at design and stuff. I just have to do it. But
and I think also like on another level of that as well, I saw a tweet the other day. I mean, it's a reasonably oldish tweet, maybe somewhere earlier in the year, of Richard Heart showed like I think it was Edgar Allan Poe, like one of his books or something that had been uploaded onto the blockchain. So we're also like really, this blockchain is also really at the cutting edge of that. So I mean, okay, that's writing, but it's that same kind of concept. We got NFTs. There's the whole Tang Gang with the whole NFT thing. I feel like, I mean, certainly on my timeline, it's gotten a little quiet. But yeah, I think it's something that's just going to continue to grow. It's really just going to continue to grow. So thanks.
Yeah.
Brian.
And one last thing on the Zach thing, I kind of forgot to say, but I think when you start launching a token, you have to have a balance between, good intentions. Obviously, he had the good intentions, but he might have been lacking on the overall like blockchain as a dev, looking at the blockchain as a dev to see that he actually had a vulnerability there around someone owning his token. I had a similar situation where I was able to grab tokens from someone in the community early, because I'm a good trader and I see things quickly, and I got lucky. I was able to grab a lot of tokens, and I was seeing that he was adding liquidity like really quickly, and he was giving me a lot of exits to potentially, make a really, really profitable trade. For like it was for me, I decided to not take profit because I wanted to be benevolent. I believe in him long term. Similar to Zach, like, I met him in person, really like the guy. I personally might have, not taken profit on his token, but you really can't operate like that on the blockchain. Those tokens could be in anybody's pockets, and you can't really trust that. So for me, in my situation where I was in that, he was lucky that I got those tokens, and I believe in it long term. And I'll be very nice to his project, but that's because I got it. But like for 99% of the time, people will take profit, and like it turns out I'm in an amazing position from not having hurt the chart whatsoever, because it's continually doing well. But you kind of feel bad when I feel bad if I see them really carrying and they're putting liquidity too quickly, or they're pumping the price too quickly. And I'm like, wow, I could really impact the chart. I could really, really, really hurt the chart right now. So it's like just giving power away from your own token, because I'm a token holder, so I know how hard it is and how much care is put into it. So I'll have empathy for that, and I most likely won't hurt the chart. But 99% of the time, you have to be really careful on that.
Yeah, really good point. Yeah. Okay. Anything else you kind of want to cover? You want to talk about?
I think I was just mainly going to tease that PLSPUP's going to get a deflationary boost coming. I won't say how or anything, but I like deflation, so I'll end on it'll most likely, no expectations, get more deflation sent its way. Not just like a burn, but like a mechanism of burning to speed up the process. Yeah.
Okay. So you're cooking something in the background with PLSPUP.
Yeah, just there's only like 20 people watching, so just there's something cooking, and potentially a partnership that people might be happy with, but that's not solidified either. So no expectations. The token could keep doing what it's saying it's doing, but I am cooking on making the meme even smarter.
There is more than 20 people watching, by the way. Most of them will be on Twitter.
Ah, there you go. Then I take it back. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. Yeah. Anything else besides that?
No, just a little tease that, like we keep building in the background, and we'll be ready for the alt cycle coming.
Yeah, awesome. And I would also encourage everyone to check out our very first interview as well together. There was a lot of light bulb moments between like the simplicity in the way that you describe very complex things. And there was definitely some light bulb moments with arbitrage for me on that particular talk. So it'll be also good for people who are interested in PLSPUP to be able to see the progression of it from back then to now and see how it's grown so much. Because I remember when we did that, I was looking at it going, okay, well, I don't want to buy it on an up, but I just kept going up and 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 up. And I was like, God damn it. So yeah, you've done an amazing job with it, man. So well done.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. And it was cool to talk to you like almost a year ago and just touch base, and hopefully we'll chat again sooner than 9 months next time.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think now with everything happening with the markets, I think, there's going to be a lot of euphoria and a lot of excitement and hype over the next 6 to 9 months. So we'll definitely get back together and have some more chats. Oh no, what happened here? Wrong button. There we are. Or this button here. There we go. So yeah, man, any closing statements before we finish up?
No, I think, there might be some more red days coming, either short term or long term. It's just like whatever you choose to do with those red days is kind of like what's going to set you up for this upcoming bull cycle. So yeah, just stay true to your rules and to your experience. Don't do anything crazy, and try to be active in communities. I think that's really lacking in some ways. It's pretty active, but I mean, it could be a lot better. So yeah, just find out where you're good at and like try to help out communities, and that'll make you work for your bag too. So not just like shilling on Twitter and stuff like that. There's actually like deeper stuff that we can do together to grow these communities. And that's kind of all I had to say. And be safe out there, and we'll chat soon.
I think just before I close up, because I wanted to really just emphasize to everyone the idea that you had about writing out those rules for yourself to really manage your mindset and manage your emotions when things like this do happen. I'm glad that you brought that up. So definitely everyone like really pay attention to that message. In my opinion, it was like one of the best ones. And then the end message there as well with the community, like it's what really differentiates us. Yes, it's a powerful force just going out there and shilling the bags and putting the what is it, the ticker symbol everywhere. That's great, but also there's a different flavor to this pulse chain ecosystem that makes it stick when people are actually here. So that's the builders, that's the diversity of the community, that's people that are literally in a decentralized manner contributing to this whole ecosystem. So yeah, if it's something that you love, it's something that you love building and you love being a part of, like there really is no better place in my opinion in crypto, because what Hawkter, the utility, it's like, bro, there was no utility. It was a pump and dump. It was always going to be a pump and dump. And then you can stick some utility words on there to make it sound like it's going to be something more than it is, but it's really just a pump and dump. And that's what this is as well in some degree with Pulse Chain. But I think it goes deeper, that concept of the community and true DeFi. So awesome, man. Thank you very much. If I don't talk to you, you have yourself an awesome Christmas, a white Christmas. Enjoy yourself. Have a safe holiday, and yeah, we'll stay in touch, bro.
Thanks. Twitter PulsePup and TG at PulsePup, and that's it. Have a good Christmas, everyone.
I've put all the links in the description there as well if everyone wants. So everybody, take care.